They ask me who I am. They ask me who I am. I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. They ask me where I'm from. I told them you can pick a side. We worldwide, I'm an Israelite. Whether through scripts or history, no, I can show you. In the army of Yahoo, as I wrote, boy, I'm a soldier. Yeah, they ask me who I am. I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. When I say Israelite, they say you Jewish. Look, don't be foolish. Come get a dose of this mental renewing. See how we brew it, it's just different. Like, for instance, first thing to know, bro, it's a culture, no religion. Talking the bloodline, they say we Jacob children. And yeah, that's a factor, but what really matter, how we living? Given that we gotta get Beseda, that mean in order. For that we got that Torah, some brothers we got Basora. Of course, and some don't believe, but that don't matter today. I ain't tryna throw no shade, as long as we all staying away. That 613, we coolin' like palm trees. A couple of that, yeah, ain't a fam, know what I mean. They ask me who I am, I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. They ask me where I'm from, I told them you can pick a side. We worldwide, I'm an Israelite. Whether through scripts or history, no, I can show you. In the army of Yahoo, as I wrote, boy, I'm a soldier. Yeah, they ask me who I am, I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. He said that we the light, got no choice but to shine. By the sweat of your brow, now you see why we grind, how we do, and we move to keep that ruach in our midst. When we eat, I got a list. Wanna build, break out them strips. We don't hate and we don't diss. We ain't worried about another. He called us his firstborn. You can call us big brother. Look deeper and you'll discover in your movies and shows, truth been exposed. What you know about those captured and sold. The Igbo and Ashanti. Check out the history, never lost. Ain't gotta find me right where we meant to be. Rebellion, let the expulsion, repentance, fix that. Yeah, I gotta get back. I keep calling big facts. They ask me who I am, I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite. They ask me where I'm from, I told them you can pick a side. We worldwide, I'm an Israelite. Whether through scripts or history, no, I can show you. In the army of Yahoo, as I wrote, boy, I'm a soldier. Yeah, they ask me who I am, I told them I'm an Israelite. That's right, I'm an Israelite.
And we ain't saying this our salvation or nothing, but the Most High just put his name on it, so we represent. All praise, shalom, shalom.
Yeah, shalom, shalom. Lechochim to all of you that's tuning in or that's looking back on the on this segment. Welcome to another segment of YAH Conscience Radio, where if it's not YAH Conscience, it is not acceptable. Naknu rotim latit kabod v'shabach leYahweh Elohei Abraham v'Yaakov Yitzchak. So luckily, I was sitting up there trying to fix this. I need an engineer so I can focus on the show and then do what I got to do. But anywho, man, appreciate all of you tuning in right now. Shalom to the panel. How y'all feeling?
Hallelujah. Shalom, shalom, everybody.
Shalom, good.
Man, I got like 50 windows I was trying to close. So the echo that you heard is because on one of the other tabs, the YouTube was open on the show. So that's what you all was hearing. So one of those days, you all, one of those days. Akko Sharon, how you doing? You there? How you feeling? Everything good today? All right, well, we have a good show today, man. It's interesting. To do or not to do? That is a question. We have some excellent topics within this title. Let's go ahead and get it started. Let's go ahead and get it started with the first question. There's a couple different parts to the question, but
Yeah.
still, nonetheless, is the question. So, how important is it for Israelites to know Hebrew today? How fluent should you be, and is it law for us to know it? Is it another way to set us apart from others? So is it another way to also set us apart from the rest of the people, from the nations, I will assume? So what's your thoughts on that? How important is it for for Israelites to know Hebrew today? How fluent should they be, or should you be, and is it law for us to know it? Let's start there. Pass the mic to Chief. What you got, Chief?
Well, first and foremost, shalom, shalom, everybody. All praise to the Most High YAH. I'm gonna go in a little bit of a different direction with this because I kind of think I know where you're gonna go, Chief. So I'm gonna go a different direction. Are y'all hearing me, or because I don't know, I got a new mic.
We hear you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm using that new mic.
Got the new mic done up the scale on us, huh?
The camera that I was using it was like almost 9 years old. It's like, okay, it's time to time to upgrade it. But yeah, I'm gonna go in a different direction because I think I hear these conversations a lot. You know, if you're on Facebook, if you spend any significant amount of time on Facebook, you see it. And you see it from both ends. You see both arguments. You know, I want to look at the I think, well, I think before we can even get into the whole the issue of is it important, how fluent should be, should we be in in the language? Does it set us apart? Does it set us apart from other people? Two things that I kind of noticed in looking at all of these discussions on Facebook. There's 2 points that they all these conversations seem to emanate from. Number one is cultural relevance. That's number one. The second one is, and I'm saying this, for reasons, scriptural deference. I mean, I'll start off with the first one, cultural relevance. We use the term Hebrew Israelite. We say we're Hebrew Israelites, and of course, by saying that, the assumption would be is, well, I'm an Israelite who embraces Hebrew culture, and that's the funny thing about culture is that it usually embraces language. Language is a central figure in anything. If you can't communicate, nothing else exists after that. That's why in the beginning, no matter you're talking about Genesis or whether you're talking about in John, in the book of John, in the beginning was word, utterance. After that, everything emanates from that. But everything is based on communication. If you can't effectively communicate something, everything that comes after that is of no consequence. So when we look at the culture as Hebrew Israelites, are we culturally Israelites? And I think that's the better question to ask, because depending on your cultural slant, that will determine how important the language is to you. One of the popular examples that I like to use is a very ignored community in the Israelite paradigm of the first century. We always hear about the Pharisees, we hear about the Sadducees, we hear about the Essenes, we hear about the Herodians, the Nazarenes, and the Ebionites, and all of these different groups in the first century. But there's a group that nobody likes to talk about, and they were arguably, next to the Pharisees, probably the biggest movement in Israel, and that is the Hellenists, the Israelites who lived in Egypt during the Greek occupation of that land. These Israelites didn't speak Hebrew at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Israelite scholars they spoke Hebrew, but the average Israelite in Egypt at that time, in Alexandria to be specific, they spoke Greek. And so the question was, well, when it came to their text, what was the text that the Egyptian, or should I say the Hellenist Israelites in Egypt, what was the text that they used? They used the Septuagint. They wrote the Septuagint, they manufactured it, and this was their what they considered to be the superior text. So in a situation where they are in Egypt under Greek rule, under Greek culture, they didn't see any relevance to learn Hebrew. Why? Because, well, we got the Septuagint here. What do we need some Hebrew text for if we got everything that we need right here? So if we was to pose this question to them, their answer would be, nah, it's actually not important to learn Hebrew. But that would be from that perspective. And that's what I mean by the culture. It really depends on the culture. It really depends on what is backing your intent when you're approaching the scriptures. If you are in a Shemitic cultural backdrop, then of course Hebrew makes all the sense in the world to learn. There's nothing else to learn except Hebrew. But this is not the case. So depending on who you talk to, you're going to get different answers as to what, how important Hebrew is. And the reason why I brought up the Alexandrian example is because we have the same scenario today. Today is not the Septuagint. Today, it's the KJV. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to stop there because I want you to go further into that issue with the KJV. But the other point about scriptural deference, that's what I was referring to as far as the with the KJV, that it also depends on the text that a person finds important. For instance, if you are an adherent of the New Testament, we know that the New Testament was not written in Hebrew. Contrary to popular opinion, it was not written in Hebrew. There's internal evidence that even in the earliest books of the New Testament, such as Matthew and Mark, that shows that whatever the original source text was, it wasn't Hebrew, because there's certain statements that are made in Hebrew where they have to translate it from the Hebrew into Greek. You don't do that if the text is already Hebrew. You don't have to translate a Hebrew text to Hebrew speakers. So anyway, but the New Testament in itself, was not written in Hebrew. Most of the Israelites of that time were being deprived of Hebrew culture and were being hammered away by Roman culture. So many of the text itself is Greek in its origin and in its scope. So a person who adheres to the New Testament, they're not going to really be hard pressed to learn Hebrew because it's not relevant to their salvation. Their salvation comes in the Gospels. It comes in the epistles of Paul. So their approach to Hebrew is going to be different as well. It's a tricky road. It's a tricky road that we're going down. But I'm gonna leave it at that and let everybody else hammer away at this subject.
Okay, good stuff. Love the different approach too. I definitely was gonna say a couple things similar, but I definitely appreciate it. I appreciate how you brought that out, because this goes. There's so many different ways you could go with this. Oh my goodness! And I'm gonna try to tread a little differently too. Go. Right. I'm gonna pass the mic to our coach Sharon. Gabriel Sharon, are you available? You there? Still, can you hear us? All right, good. Better, Kathy. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to you. If we till she fix that issue. It might be a little issue going on over there with the technical side.
Okay. So I like the way the Chief broke it down. I also I just wanted to know how. I don't know. It just seemed like when you announce, not even announce, well, when people realize, or you have that conversation about who you are, you're Israelite. Some people they kind of hold you to a certain standard to know Hebrew. So I do think that it's very important. That's part of, Sabbath. That's very important. And to be able to, and you're right, if someone knows Hebrew, you necessarily don't have to translate it. But in order to help and make sure that everyone has a clear and right understanding for the most part, you do have to sometimes reference Hebrew and reference to things, English written things. So I do feel that it's important. I do feel that it separates us. I love to hear the elders, speak and be able, to speak English and then Hebrew. It's amazing. I mean, because you all know I'm new to understanding, but prior to it was just all seeing, different people of not my color or my understanding speaking it and acting as if though they were above and beyond, the people that they were amongst because they didn't understand. And it felt like when they were among themselves, like they were having their own dialogue. They were in their own little world. And no one else was a part of it. So that's why I wanted to really see what my elders here had to, think about that, because that's just how I feel. I really do think that it's very important. And it does distinguish us.
Okay. Appreciate that. Coach Sharon, you there?
Okay, I'm here.
All right, I'm passing the mic to you.
How important it is for us Hebrew Israelites to know the law. Well, I always kind of go back to my time growing up into the Tanakh, into Torah. And my father made it detrimental for us to know Hebrew because it was important for him for us to gain a sense of identity, cultural identity. Also, it was important for us to learn how to communicate in our own language. Like we see other nations communicating their own language. Why not we communicate in our own language? It was it was just as simple as that. Um, it like Chief Zabulin said, it wasn't important as far as it'll help us salvation wise. However,
I think you went out. There you go. I think
can y'all hear me?
we hear you now.
Yeah, it wasn't as detrimental to know as far as to save a person's salvation. However, it did give us a sense of cultural identity. Also, he made it's important to know when you read scriptures. It's important to know to read it in Hebrew. It's important to break down the scriptures, um, and certain words in Hebrew so we can get the full understanding of the context that we are reading. That's the sole basis of why he started teaching us Hebrew at a young age anyway, is to kind of like break down the full understanding and get the full context of what the scriptures are saying. Do I think it's important? Yeah, I do. I do think it's important. Do I think it's real? Do I think it's something that we can do without? Uh, okay. But I do think in order to gain, if you are trying to study the full extent of the scriptures, I do think it's important to know the Hebrew, because it do give you the accuracy of what you're reading. And besides that, you who like don't you want to be able to communicate with your fellow peers in our language? Like isn't that fulfilling when you surround yourself around other nations, and you're talking in your own native language? We do that all the time. We hear it all the time I know I do when I go to the nail shop. You had them people talking in that language. You was like, you know what? I'm gonna get me a translator. See what they talking about, because I know they be talking mess. So it was just something as simple as that. Like, yeah, I want to be able to do that with my people, you know. But hold the screen stopped flowing with the questions. I don't know if I answered the second part.
Oh, I'm gonna bring it back out. Second part is how fluent should you be, and is it law for us to know it? Third one is it another way to set us apart from others?
It definitely set us apart. Is a law not really, not precisely. Do it set us apart? Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
But I would say, like, if you're trying to just learn basic Hebrew, Barrett, Kathy, it do help you gain a sense of what the context of what you're reading when you're studying scriptures. It's a totally different ball game from what the English say, and when you break it down, when you look into a Hebrew concordance and what the Hebrew word is actually saying.
Okay.
And real quick, Slockley, real quick, just so that there's clarity on this issue, because I don't want anybody who's after the fact to misinterpret what was happening. Now, by no means am I saying that Hebrew is not important, because I just want to make sure, so that there's no misunderstanding. What I'm saying, I'm of the viewpoint that if you're not consulting the Hebrew text first and foremost, you're missing the entire point.
Pretty much.
But the reason why I angled my argument the way I did, because we don't have that problem. Like, we understand, but there's a lot of our people who don't understand that because they're not Hebrews culturally.
Okay.
They're Hebrews by nationality, but many of them are Christian by theology. Mm-hmm. Many of them are Western by how Eastern can you be if the source text that you're using is English?
Okay.
So I was pretty much arguing from their perspective, saying like, well, this is the reason why many people don't see it's a primary reason to study Hebrew, because, well, I'm not a cultural Hebrew. I'm an American Hebrew. I think Ben Ami coined the term. He referred to Hebrew Americans. No, Israelites who are Israelites by nationality, but they are American philosophically, theologically. That's and that's the reason why Hebrew is not important for them. So I just wanted to make sure that no one is thinking that, or nobody who might be listening or watching, thinking that I'm saying that no, it's not. No, I am not saying that at all. So I just want to be clear on that.
Good points, everyone. If you're tuning in right now, welcome to YAH Conscience Radio. If it's not YAH Conscience, it is not acceptable. Make sure that you subscribe, like, share, let people know. Different topics every week. You're not going to know where we're going to go. I'm going to go ahead and close this one out, right? It's so many angles. Chief went in a direction to where as to why people don't, which is a good reason. And the main reason is one of the things I've always talked about, being culturally within this walk. Culture is totally different than just being an Israelite. It really is. I want to take it before I go where I want to go really quick. I want to just paint a picture, kind of like what the Achayot, the sisters, was basically saying. Why wouldn't you want to? First of all, why don't so-called black people want to learn another language? Period. Let me start there. Let's forget the Israelite stuff right now. Let's forget the scripture stuff right now. We don't even want to learn another language. And watch this. Watch this. I want to say something. It's funny. I'm going to take us to a couple scripts, and it's a famous scripture, Zephaniah 3:9. I'm not even going to go to Isaiah 28 because it's just going to take too much time. So I'm just going to speak what I know it to be. But I'm going to go through Zephaniah 3:9 for a reason. But I find it quite interesting that when it comes to Hebrew, now this is a different angle I'm taking. I'm taking the opposite angle that Chief went. When it comes to Hebrew, it's like, no, we don't got to speak it. This is what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But then they will love the Spanish language. They love Italian. They'll love, and guess what? All those languages are Roman languages. Romantic. Remember, I was saying something about that the other day. I was like, man, I asked somebody, I said, what's the romantic language to you? They said, oh, Italian, Spanish, and they named a couple more that was from Rome, basically. I said, do you know we be saying stuff like, man, he's romantic. She's romantic, or blah, 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 blah. You're literally saying they're of Rome. Romantic does not mean like it's something that is sexy. It literally is a Roman language.
But
We're
I guess you can't. I guess you can't be mad at that, because maybe they mean exactly that. It is romantic.
Okay.
Because
Perhaps.
this is how they, yeah.
Okay, and yeah. I could rock with that. But for the most part, people I've talked to, when I brought this out, they was like, whoa. I said, yes, it has nothing to do from a standpoint of like it's the most romantic, sexy language. It just means this is our languages. This is romantic languages. This is what it is. What is the point of me saying this? The point of me saying this is, when it comes to the scripts, we are just cool with being speaking English, and that's okay. I say do whatever makes you happy, whatever does you justice for your walk. But I would encourage people to look at the full scope when you're using these scripts to say that we don't have to do, or the language is not needed. It's going to be something new that's going to come. I say be careful with that. And I think the problem as to why people, and I know this is not about the scriptures. She was asking the question about, is it important for Israelites to, I think it is. I'm just going to answer it like that. And then I'm going to go to what I'm trying to say. I think it is important for us to learn the language, just for the simple fact that it's learning another language, first and foremost. That's one. Two, it's like you lady said, it's going into what we're claiming ourselves to be. Do you know how many Spanish people I talk to that don't speak Spanish, and they say, man, I wish my parents would have forced me to do it. I don't even feel like I have time to go back. So it's like, it is important to those who are what they are. If you're Hispanic, speaking the language is important to you. If you're Arab, speaking Arabic is important to you. If you're any other but for us, it's not on a large scale. Now, I feel like I can actually say that, because I know normally people be like, man, fishbowl. But for some reason on this, man, I don't see on a large scale people truly going into learning the language. Maybe to get the little catchphrases and get the little shaloms and beseda and stuff like that, but not learning how to speak it. You know what I'm saying? So let's go to it real quick. So two places that they go to, that our people go to more than anything, is Isaiah chapter 28 and Zephaniah 3 and 9. Chief has said something about when you get into the culture, you understand it better, right? I won't even have to go into the language, although I do agree with Achot Sharon. I won't have to go into the language to pull out what this really means. But if you're not culturally based, you're going to read Zephaniah 3 and 9, and it's going to say a new language is going to be given, basically. So when you read that and you have no foundational cultural understanding, I'm not going to say you to have no understanding, but no contextual understanding, no scenario understanding, meaning like it's this whole scripture is something that the Most High has been trying to get us to do, and that's to be faithful to him through the whole Tanakh. And he's been battling with us to be on one accord to what he's been speaking of for us to do. Our language produces our actions a lot of times, right? What you say is normally what you do, or what you think is normally what you do. So let me get to the point. Let's go to Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 1. I just want to read straight down before we get to verse 9. Instead of jumping straight to verse 9, let's go to verse 1 real quick, y'all. I ain't trying to teach. I just want to bring this out though real quick. What the heck? All right, cool. Here we go. Y'all there? Everybody there? We there? I don't know if y'all gonna look at it or not. Y'all there? All right, here we go. So Zephaniah 3:1. All right. So it says, "Woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. She obeyed not the voice. She received not correction. She trusted not in the Most High." Yodewai. She drew not near to her Elohim. Her princes within her are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves. They gnaw not the bones till the morrow. Her prophets are light and treacherous persons. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary. They have done violence to the law. It's talking about a people. It seems like this has been the same thing over and over, dealing with who? Chief, help me out. Who is dealing with? Who is dealing with right here? Who they talking about? Let's keep going. The just, Yodhewa, is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity. Every morning doth he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame. I have cut off the nations; their towers are desolate. I made their streets waste, that none passes by. Their cities are destroyed, so that there is no man, that there is none inhabitant. I said, surely thou wilt fear me, thou wilt receive instruction, so their dwellings should not be cut off. However, I punished them, but they rose early and corrupt all their doings. Therefore, wait ye upon me, saith Yah, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them my indignation, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. For then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of Yah, to serve him with one consent. To serve him with one consent.
Shoulder.
Shalom, shalom, Black Av. So let me ask you a question. Those that's listening, those that's tuning in. Right now, we have people that believe in the 12 tribe chart. We have people that speak different languages within that group. And we have many people that are speaking the same language, right? We're all speaking English, but we're still not on one accord. We're not serving the Most High the same way. Do we think, with that being said, if we all speak in English, and many of us are all over the place in how we're doing certain things, do we think that it's literally a language that's going to correct us? Or do we think that it's being on one accord on how we move in obedience? Because when you read verses 1-8, it's talking about us, our prophets being messed up. It's talking about us going against what was put in place. Everything. You see that in Jeremiah. You see that in Isaiah. You see that in Judges. You see that everywhere. That had nothing to do with language. So the point in what I wanted to bring out is for those that use like Zephaniah 3:9 or Isaiah 28, which is talking about the leaders. When you read verse 1, it's talking about the leaders being drunken and forcing these things on the people, yet they don't even understand. But then they telling, hey, precept upon precept. Precept means command, you all. So I'm telling them to do this. Okay, since you're telling them to do this, but y'all acting like drunkards, y'all not even doing it. Okay, now I'm gonna confuse y'all, because now my word to y'all is gonna be as the way that y'all been doing to them, and you're not gonna get it. For my New Testament people out there, how can I prove the consistency in what I'm saying? You go all the way to I think it's Matthew, I don't know, 20, something like that, when it talks about do what they say, but not what they do. You go Matthew 4:4 when it says You hypocrites. You honor me with your lips, but your heart is far from me. That means you're not doing something outwardly. You're just speaking it, which was coined from Isaiah chapter 30, by the way. So I don't really need the New Testament to show the point, but for those that's watching that I'm just showing the consistency all around. It's not language. It's our ways, is what we're doing, is how we're moving. That needs to be on one consent. Tower of Babel, they was going in one consent. They was moving as one man. Ezra talks about one man. Every time you see the people moving as one man, not language, not talking, but one man, that's when they thrived. So Zephaniah 3:9 is not talking about a language, you all. It's talking about just moving one consent, one as one man, one heart, one mind in the Most High Yah. When we get there, that's when we're going to be connected. So I just wanted to bring that out and bring the other side to that. Anybody got anything to say in regards to what I said? Oh, real quick, one more thing. Chief, I'm glad when you put your finger up, I want to show something real quick. For those that, are you familiar with the Apocrypha? Better Kathy? All right, so in Sirach, I'm not even going to go to it. In Sirach, before the first chapter, is something that's, it's like a, I guess like a, what would you call it, Chief? Like an intro, like just breaking down the history of why this is being written or how it was built, correct?
Yeah, preamble. Yeah.
Preamble, there you go. So in that preamble, this is well after Zephaniah 3:9, way after, hundreds of years after. And he said that they labored to make sure to the best of their abilities that you all can understand this, because translating into another language does not have the same power that it does in the language. Goes back into what Akho Sharon was bringing out about looking at the words and things like that. But even with that, sometimes you got to start going into some other stuff. But I'm just going to say her point is very valid, because that's what he was saying in Sirach. He's saying that they labored to make sure that you all, to the best of their abilities, for y'all to understand what is being said in the language that you all understand. This is after Zephaniah 3:9. So when you read in the text, it will behoove you to at least have a little bit of understanding as to look at the Hebrew, or learn from somebody that does. Do not take, and y'all know I'm passionate about this because Hebrew is my thing. So if I'm long-winded, forgive me. But do not listen to teachers. So luckily, I'm sorry for the teachers out there. With all due respect, do not listen to teachers that tell you not to learn Hebrew. Do not listen to teachers that tell you Zephaniah 3:9 is saying that you don't have to learn it. We're all going to have one language. It's going to be one pure Hebrew language. It doesn't say that at all. They're adding to that. And with that, I yield. Make sure y'all go to Sirach 1 and y'all see in the preamble what I'm talking about, which that was what, 400, 500, 600 years after Zephaniah 3:9. Like you said. All right, with that, I yield. Anybody got anything to add before we go to the first song?
Yeah, about 400 years.
400 years.
But yeah, give or take.
So, any of the ladies got anything before we go to the first song of the evening?
Did you say something, Chief, about people love Spanish and other languages because it sounds romantic? Did you make a comment around that?
I said, and in addition to that part, because I said a little more than that, but you basically, that was right. I don't think they really believe it sounds that. I think they have been conditioned that this language is so romantic and it sounds that way. Case in point, I remember it was a woman I was talking to, not like talking to, getting to know, but she said that, and I said, "Oh, okay." She said, "Yeah, when the Hebrew just sounds so strong." I said, "Well, it depends on the person that's speaking it." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Okay, let me show you." So I just spoke Hebrew, but I didn't say it harshly. You know what I'm saying? I didn't say like "Bokato."
Okay.
And when I did that, it sounded the same as the Spanish. When I just spoke it, it sounded the same. So
Yeah.
no, I'm not saying that Hebrew sounds. I'm not saying that what you just said. No.
I notice when people speak Hebrew fluently, it do roll off the tongue like a very type of language. Where if
Mhm.
someone is just starting to learn it, yeah, it's going to come off very rough, very
Yeah.
aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you got to get that cat down, that cat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nasty word right there.
It sounds so good when you hear somebody actually pronounce it that way. Because I've heard people say they pronounce it as Chet, and I'm like,
Nope.
Oh.
Right.
like, come on, man, come on now. Like this is not Romanian and Polish language. This is
Right.
Hebrew. It's not Chet, it's Chet. So
Cat.
same
Right.
thing with the Rish. They like when they say Rish, they don't roll the R. You got to roll the R.
Right.
Mm.
Rish. So I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
but if I may, I was gonna
Okay.
say like even with the Zephaniah 3, because there's a lot of there's a lot of there's multiple rabbit holes with that text.
Yeah.
But this goes right back to the issue of of culture, and not just culture and how we dress and how we speak, but cultural and how we think. So, for instance, even in Zephaniah 3, starting in verse 1, even when we read down, there's something right there in verse 1 that is supposed to make people stop and say, wait a minute. Something, before we even read any further, there's a question that has to be answered there. If we look at verse 1, what is the question that should be asked right there?
Let's go to it. Let's get it.
And by me bringing this up, this is kind of go right back into what you were saying, Chief, about about the necessity to not just learn the language, but also to understand the mechanics of language. You know what I'm saying? So, hermeneutics, as they call it.
There you go.
Because the first thing that is stated in verse 1 is what? Woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. Stop right there. What is the oppressing city that is being spoken of? Now, this is where the problem comes in. Because in the King James Version texts, in between chapter partitions, they'll give you a chapter summary, like a sentence that'll give you like a summary of the rest of the verses that are about to come after it. What does it say? I don't know if it's in yours, but in many of the older KJVs, right there on top of verse of chapter 3:1, they insert a statement where it says, "Woe to Jerusalem."
Mm.
This is where a lot of Israelites are going wrong, or being misled, because they're going into the text, they see that written on top of Zephaniah 3:1. So in their mind, what are they saying? Oh, this is talking about Jerusalem. So when you start reading verse 1, you say, okay, woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. Jerusalem. Okay, she obeyed not the voice. She received not correction. She trusted not in the Lord. She drew not to her, drew not near to her God. But before we even get to that, there's something else prior to Zephaniah 3:1 that has to be observed, because we know that this is not the natural Hebrew partition of the text. This is a King James partition.
Mm-hmm.
So when you back up to Zephaniah chapter 2, you see there's something else completely different going on here. We can go back up to verse 13. And then when you read it down, we understand something else is happening. It says, and he will stretch out his hand against the north and destroy Assyria, and will make Nineveh a desolation and dry like a wilderness. And flocks shall lie down in the midst of her, all the beasts of the nations, both the cormorant and the bittern shall lodge in the upper lintels of it. Their voice shall sing in the windows, desolation shall be in the thresholds, for he shall uncover the cedar work. This is the rejoicing city that dwelt carelessly. Let's read that again. This is the rejoicing city that dwelt carelessly, that said in her heart, I am, and there is none beside me. How has she become a desolation, a place for beasts to lie down in? Everyone that passed by her shall hiss and wag his hand. What city is being referred to here? Nineveh. This is a statement about Nineveh, the city, and the country of Assyria. So when you see 2:15 ends, and then it goes right to verse 1 in chapter 3, it says, woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. This is not specifically talking about Jerusalem. This is talking about Nineveh. It's talking about Ethiopia. It's talking about the nations round about. And and that's what I'm saying, that it's a completely additional rabbit hole here.
And what's crazy, Chief, when you get down to verse 8 in Zephaniah 3, we're going to close out after this, you all, I promise. When you get down to chapter verse 8, it points out about how everybody is going to have to come and be in one consent. How can I prove that, you all? Zechariah, Chief, help me out, when it talks about that the nations are going to come and they're going to have to come and do the Sukkot or the tabernacles and stuff like that. This is all connected. This is not talking about a language speaking. This is talking about being in one consent to the Most High Yah and being obedient.
And that's the reason why, again, what we talked about earlier about the KJV, when people are going into the KJV, they're going into, and I really want to be careful when I say this because I don't want to offend, but when you go into the KJV, you're going into an unnatural text. And what I mean by unnatural, I mean that it is the KJV is a translation of a translation. Let's go down the line. The KJV was extracted from what? What is the first page, the opening page of the KJV tells you? The opening page of the KJV, when the Old Testament is about to start, what does it say? Matter of fact, I don't even have a KJV in front of me, but if you get one of the old KJVs, it'll say, translated out of the original tongues with the former translations diligently compared and revised by His Majesty's special command. This is a problem for Israelites who are using Zephaniah 3:9 in that way, because if they're saying that the Hebrew that was being spoken of at that time has been corrupted,
we don't need this book.
You cannot trust the language, nor the lying scribes and all of that good stuff they're reading. If that is true, if you can't trust the language, then you're still being misled, because the KJV has told you it is translated out of the original tongues. So therefore, it's translated out of Greek, out of Latin, and out of Hebrew. So even in your English, if your English is based on the same Hebrew that you're saying is corrupted, that means that even your English is corrupted, because your English is translated from a corrupted text of a corrupted language. So no matter how you cut the cake, you're still lost. But they're not catching that. Why? Because when they open up their KJV, they're being told, before they even read the first verse, they're being told at the top of the page how they should understand it. They're being told, no, this is talking about Jerusalem.
Yeah.
But you read the text before and you realize, no, this is talking about Assyria, and the city is being referred to is Nineveh. But this is what happens when we're in the KJV and there's no Hebraic cultural references that we could say, okay, well, let's go back into the Hebrew text. You can't go back into the Hebrew text because you're already teaching people that the language is corrupted. And if the language is corrupted, then why even use a Strong's Concordance?
Mm-hmm.
But this is where the confusion comes in with the language.
Let's go ahead and move along. Hopefully you all that's listening, you got something out of some of the things that were said about us. We're going to go ahead and start with the first song of this evening, and this is by U3. That is a group called U3, and the song is Come Home.
He's giving you like so don't you refuse it. You know you are his child from the
He's giving you life, so don't you refuse it. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. He's giving you life, so don't you refuse it. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. My child, please repent today. I was calling. You don't have to be afraid. There is safety when you make that change. Time is short now. Later's not guaranteed. We know we've been raised and trained the wrong way, but it's time for our people to wake up today. Come on. He's giving you life, so don't you refuse it. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. He's giving you life, so don't you refuse it. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. It's appointed on a man wants to die. So my child, please come home while you're still alive. You are chosen and set apart. He is calling. Let him in your heart. Wonder why you go through what you go through. Albert has the answers, and we know that. We know we've been raised and trained the wrong way, but it's time for our people to wake up today. Come on. He's giving you life, so don't you refuse it. Come home. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. Come home to a heart. He's giving you life, so don't you refuse. He's waiting. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. He's giving you life, so don't you refuse. You know you are his child. Come home, come home. You know you are his child. You know you are his child. He's giving you life, so don't you refuse. You know you are his child. Come home. You know you are his child. You know you are his child.
That was U3. Come home. Come home. Two sisters, one brother. I believe he's the producer of the track too. He makes the beats. Definitely a good track. We're gonna go ahead and move on. For those that are just tuning in, make sure you subscribe, like, share. If you're watching from Facebook, go on YouTube, subscribe, like, share. YAH Conscience Radio. You missed the first topic. If you missed it, make sure you go back and watch it. The first topic was dealing with the Hebrew language. Should we be speaking it? Is it law? Is it let me go back to it. I want to make sure I hit it right. How fluent should we be? Things of that nature. A lot of things was brought out by all the panelists, and if you missed it, make sure you check it out. So without further ado, the second question of this evening, and it is: are women allowed to wear pants today? Oh my goodness, this topic has been this has been a topic for as long as I've been in the truth. Man, it's a good one. So we're gonna go ahead and kick it off with Akhot Sharon. Should women or are women allowed to wear pants today? Whew.
I think
What you
I'm the wrong person to ask this question to.
No. We want to hear it all. Everybody point of views.
Well, this has been an ongoing debate within the Hebrew community for a very long time. Somehow we just cannot get on one accord of the interpretation of what Deuteronomy 25 is stating, as far as you shall not wear what pertaineth to a man. I talked about this like 2-3 weeks ago on Facebook. This sister was having a whole discussion about it, and I broke down the origin and the etymology once again of the origins of these Hebrew words when you look up the certain words in the Hebrew concordance. And from my studies, and correct me if I'm wrong, from my studies, it was talking about war garment. It was talking about artillery bag, trousers. I had my studies right here with me. It wasn't necessarily from my studies, it wasn't necessarily pertaining. The context wasn't gearing towards pants. Also, we have to. This is my question. Let me just spin it this way. This is my question. What were the men wearing in those times? Because when it talks about trousers and breeches, it gives a description that that the Levites wore these type of apparel, this type of attire, and the breeches and the trousers in Hebrew was something to. It was something to kind of like hold in their goins, to hold in their private area. So my question is, what were the men wearing? Because it was also a scripture in Daniel that talks about it was also a scripture in Daniel that talks about 3 men who came forth, and they had on what you called breeches and a robe-like attire. And my question is, were majority of our men wearing breeches and a robe-like attire? Meaning like they was wearing, meaning like they only wore an undergarment to cover their groins and a robe-like attire, or not something like a dress, but like a tunic top, if that makes sense.
It's a good question. Chief, you got that one?
I'm gonna go get my Hebrew concordance because I underlined this specific chapter, because I just talked about. I was just on Facebook having a discussion about the topics about women wearing pants.
Okay. I'm gonna let Chief answer your question since it was a question, and after that, I come in with my points.
Yeah, I mean it's been a topic. This has been a very heavy topic in the community for a while, and when I say a while, I mean relatively speaking, because there was a point in time in Israel that this was not even an issue. Women just wore dresses. It wasn't even something that was really discussed. Women did it on their own volition, because there was an understanding that, well, this is how women dress. Women, So this, so it's really been only really been an issue, and I really don't want to keep throwing everything back at the women's lib movement, but let's just keep it real. Deuteronomy 22:5, and it has been debated as far as what is the meaning of the text. Let's get to the text real quick. You have the Hebrew text in front of you, Chief?
Well, you want me to read from KJV?
No, the KJV is of the devil. No, let me not say that. But but the KJV, well, the Hebrew text, the
the
verse
actual
5.
Hebrew text. Okay, hold on.
Okay, the actual Hebrew text of verse 5.
All right, I'm about to grab it right now. Devarim 22. So likely you are. And 5. I'm using my phone, so bear with me.
Not
Just
a
the
problem.
whole verse, right? You got it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can do the whole verse. I mean, but of course the question, the portion that's in question is really the first half of the verse.
Okay, so lo yihye
Mhm,
geli geber or gever, some people say,
mhm,
al isha
mhm.
welo yilbesh geber shimlet isha.
Okay. Now the term that's in question, this is the term that's caused many of debates online, has been the term geber,
Mhm.
because geber, most people say that, oh, it's talking about a military man, a man, a man of war, a man that is in the armed forces, and therefore, by extension, that means that whatever he is wearing, it must be that which is military. Um, and I get it. I completely get that particular train of thought. Now, the problem, though, is trying to trace this term geber back into the text scripturally to show where this term is in fact a military term. Because what's happening is that geber is being translated as mighty men or mighty man. But that's not what the term itself means. This is how it has been rendered. It's been rendered as mighty man, but the term geber just simply means what? It means a lord, someone who has power. How do we know this? And this is where I believe that the conversations about the subject of pants, I think the conversation has to kind of go in this direction first, with Israelites, before we get into the issue of pants. We got to figure out, what exactly is this term geber implying? What does it mean, and what does it imply elsewhere? So for those who may not be familiar, with Hebrew, or those who are familiar, they'll understand where I'm going with this. We know that geber is a masculine noun, masculine singular noun, right? Talking about a man. We know that oftentimes when you have a masculine noun, you have a feminine noun that corresponds to it.
Mhm.
So if I say geber, that's referring to a man. What would be the word for the woman? It would be geberet.
Geberet. Mhm.
So then my question would be, if and we can find the term geberet all throughout the scriptures, especially in Genesis. If geber means a military man, does geberet mean a military woman? And if it does mean military woman, then how do we make the distinction when it comes to armor? Armor is armor. A sword is a sword. There's no female sword and masculine. The text itself. Let's get an example real quick of geberet.
I love this platform.
No. I mean, this is because this is something that I think that is actually missing in the conversations about this subject. Everything is about the pants, and it's like, well, there's some things that have to be kind of dealt with first before we even can talk about whether pants is permissible or it's not, or whatever the case may be. There's some, there's some, things that have to be addressed. So, for instance, let's go to one of the earliest occurrences of the term geberet. Bereshit 16:4. That would be Genesis chapter 16, verse 4. And we have we have in the verse it says, "Wayabo el Hagar, watarhar withare, ki harata watequal geberta be'erenia." And he went unto Hagar. We know this story. Abram goes to Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she was conceived, that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Sarah is referred to as the mistress. She's the master woman of the house, so she's called mistress. But the Hebrew word there is geberta. From the same root as geber. My question would be is,
I want to ask something before you continue. I want to ask something.
Okay.
The word is actually gebered. With the high when it comes in, that's pointed at like what Chief just brought out, her mistress, just so you all know. So it is gebered. For those that say, wait, that's not gebered, it's gebered. Right. No, the I is just is pointing at, being her mistress. So the word is gebered. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay. Now, of course, the question is if Sarah is being referred to as geberet here, and geberet is the feminine form of geber, would that make Sarah a female warrior? Is she a military personage? Because no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It would seem that the meaning of these words are interchangeable behind different contexts. It seems in that scripture it talks about Sarah being it explains her status as a woman, like a certain class.
No, absolutely. But
so could it be that the word geberet is interchangeable according to the context when we read, when we read the scriptures, according to the context behind it?
Theoretically, yeah, it's possible. But the problem is that in every occurrence of geberet, the context never changes. It's always in the context of a woman being a mistress, she being the female master of her house. So you have the husband, and then you have the woman, which is funny how you see how terms have changed over time. Nowadays, when you say mistress, it's usually talking about some skanky female who's coming in, breaking up a family. But in King James days, when a woman was called a mistress, it meant that she was the female ruler of her house. Yeah. That the husband was the overarching individual, but when he's out and about, that's her domain. She runs the show. That's how she was able to give a handmaid to her husband and say, here, take her and bring forth a child. But in every occurrence of the term geberet, we find it consistently being used as a term of a woman who has a certain authority in the house. Okay. A certain authority as she moves. It's never in reference to anything military based. But see, this is why I say that the term geber, when people say that geber is in reference to something that's military, it can be. But the problem is actually finding corresponding scriptures, at least enough scriptures to where we can see that, okay, yeah, it's definitely used in this fashion. The term geber is used, in fact, I think, but it's used over, I don't know, maybe 20 different times. And in some cases, it's used in reference to a young child, a baby, in the book of Job. Now we know that a young baby there's nothing military about a situation like that. And so the question then becomes that if we go through these examples, and we can run through every single one of them, but if we run through these examples and we don't see a corresponding like a parallel of that explanation, if we're saying geber means something that is military based, we should be able to easily find scenarios in the scriptures in which Geber pans out as someone who is a military based. Now, now to be fair, are there occurrences where the scenario is talking about something military and the term Geber appears there? Yeah, there's a couple places, but it's never Geber by itself. There's always a predicate. There's always an adjective that's attached to it to show you what kind of man, because Geber means a man, a mighty man. But in order to say that it is a man of like a warrior on the level of going to war or military, there's other terms that have to be attached to Geber in order to make that the case. For instance, you might see a term Geber. I'm saying Geber. What is the term?
Khalil?
No. Yeah, well, Khalil is used. One of them is used. Milchama. So you see something like Geber Milchama, meaning mighty man of war. Because you can be a mighty man and not be a warrior at all. You're just a mighty man. You're just a woman can be a mighty woman. It doesn't mean that she's, busting her gun in a battle. It just means that no, she is mighty in whatever it is. Sarah was not a military woman, but she was a mighty woman in that camp. You know what I'm saying? And they knew that. So she's referred to as Geberet because there was an understanding of her power and her authority. But having power and authority doesn't mean that you're a soldier in a war. So when we're talking about women or a man of war, you'll see Geber there, but you'll always see a corresponding term to explain what kind of mighty man they are. So you'll see Geber Milchama. You'll see Geber something in order to explain what kind of man it is. But will you see Geber by itself in reference to a man dealing with war? I haven't seen one yet. And I'm not saying that it's a closed case scenario. What I'm saying is that in order for people to take the position that it is referring to a war situation, they'll have to show the scriptural examples to connect with that. If not, we got to ask ourselves, where did this idea come from of this term meaning war, like battle armor and all this stuff. Now I know where it came from.
Yeah,
I know where it came from. It came from Ibn Ezra, the Jewish. Well, that term is kind of funny, but the Judaic scholar of the Middle Ages, where he's the only Hebraic authority in the past 3,000 years that has ever rendered that text that way. Every other scholar has said, "Oh, it's talking about women putting on the clothing that is assigned to men, and men putting on the clothing assigned to women." All Hebrew authorities for the past 2,000 years bear witness to that. Ibn Ezra is the only one who states it about, this is a military term. But even after he explains it in his breakdown, he goes on to say that it was still all about with clothing or garments that men are supposed to wear and garments that a woman is supposed to wear, and there's not supposed to be any mixing of the two. But this goes
for
into
those
some
that's
other,
listening. Can you say that name again for those that's listening, if they want to write it down?
Right. Is a Judaic scholar, because there's still questions as to whether he was Jewish or whether he was of Hebrew origin. So that's why I say it's kind of murky. But his name was Ibn Ezra, IBN, Ibn Ezra, Ezra. So when you go into all of the
Judaic scholar, you said?
Yeah.
Put it in the chat for those that's listening right now, just in case they want to copy and paste.
Yeah.
If I put it the right thing, so when you get a chance.
No, absolutely. And this is where the idea has come from, because again, no other Judaic source bears witness to that interpretation. No other source does that. The earliest sources, in the source that's considered the source, a man named Rashi, he says the same thing, that it's about Men had certain things that they wore. Women had certain things that they wore. But the prohibition, apparently, and this is where it gets, why we got to go back into the culture. You know what I'm saying? The issue of the cross-dressing did not have to do with so much as far as military issues. It was more about, it was a theological decision. Why? Because remember, when the Israelites are coming out of Egypt, they're being given laws and they're being told to what? Not to emulate the ways of the nations that you're going to come upon. Don't emulate the ways of the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, and every other ite that is in the land. All these laws tell us not to take on their ways. Now think about one of the, in the land of Canaan, among the Canaanites, who was one of the most important deities amongst the Canaanites. It was a deity, a female deity named called Asherah. And one of Asherah's in the Canaanite religion, they believed in sex being a way to please the gods, especially Asherah. One of the ways that Asherah, quote unquote, required her followers, the people, to worship her, and this is, like I said, you can Google this. Google Canaanite transvestism. One of the things that the Canaanite, quote unquote, deity required of their inheritance is to what? That they required that the men take on the dress code of women, the women take on the dress code of men, and that they would have intercourse, gender with gender, male with male, female with female. That's the reason why there's another text, and you know the text, Chief, where it talks about the quadation, the quadasha.
Okay.
Where they talk about male and female temple prostitutes, because this was the belief system of the Canaanites, that if you wanted to be set apart to the Canaanite deities, men had to sleep with men, women had to sleep with women, and both of them had to dress like the opposite gender. This is what the Canaanites believed.
We seeing that today.
Right. This is what, now mind you, this is what the Canaanites believed. And these are the very people that the Most High and Moshe and the elders, that they are warning the Israelites to be careful, because you're going into a land where you're going to see this all the time. You're going to see men walking around wearing women's garments, and you're going to see women walking around with men garments. So this was a theological decision. It wasn't so much, military. Now, mind you, with that said, I'm not saying that at some point in time that military armor and stuff like that, that there was certain armor that was for men, whatever. And I'm not saying that, because I do think it's that. I just don't believe that that is the origin of that law. Now, the last thing I want to say with that, because I'm just trying to keep it historical here.
This your turn too, Chief. Because you was gonna go last. Now this your turn. This your turn. I'll go last.
I apologize. I'm just
trying to get you to answer. I was just trying to get you to answer her, man. You went into your spiel. I love it though. All praises.
No, but historically now, when we look at the issue of the pants, because that's really the issue now. The issue is about pants. It's really not about Deuteronomy 25 or 22:5. And I tell people all the time that Deuteronomy 22, you don't have to use Deuteronomy 22:5 in order to argue against women wearing pants. You don't have to touch that scripture at all. All we have to do is keep it contemporary and say, okay, 100 years ago, were pants a male garment? Were women wearing pants 100 years ago, 120 years ago? No.
You don't even need the Bible. You don't need the Bible.
Pants are male garments. This is the reason why there's a zipper there. There's a reason why when you look at pictures.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. As far as the evolution of pants, because they have pants where if you see a zipper, then that's specifically made for men. Where they would say that they made pants for women and you don't see a zipper. It's a blank space in the front.
Right.
Where where it's more gender, it's gender specific. As far as the pants go, as far as the evolution of them making pants according to the gender. The zipper part, that's for men. If you don't see a zipper part, then that was specifically made for a woman. I just wanted to add that.
No, absolutely. And that was the path that I was going down. And it's important to understand those things because yes, we did see the evolution of pants, but we know that evolution means that something has grown out of something that was pre-existing. That means that at one point in time, pants were unequivocally male garments, just like dresses were unequivocally female garments. Unequivocally. When women's lib came in, one of the ways that white women's lib tried to stick it to their white male counterparts was the wearing of pants to show them what? Because 100 years ago, when someone said, "Who wears the pants in the relationship?" What did that mean? It meant the man wore the pants. So when you say a woman wears the pants in a relationship, what does that mean? It means that the man is probably a simp, probably a punk, and the woman rules over.
Woman taking on the man role.
Right. The understanding.
Hold on. Before you keep going, Chief, look, this is why those that's listening, those that's looking back, this is what context means, everybody. This is what historic value or historic studying and comparing and all of these things is important. Go ahead, Chief. I just wanted to bring it out because this is context. This is history. It's not to say do what you want to do what you feel you need to do, but at least learn this stuff. Go ahead.
No, right. And so like with listen, everybody has their preferences as far as how they dress, whatever like that. If you're married or whatever like that, and we always talk about this all the time, Chief, in a woman's household, there's no such thing as two lords. If that woman is married, no man from outside of that house is supposed to be lording on how that man runs his house. So
right. So me and Chief don't run. Nobody that's listening, tuning in later, we don't run y'all house if y'all got husbands. Your husband run your house.
So I'm not. So when I say certain things, I'm just saying it strictly from a historical standpoint. Okay. What a person does after that and behind it, it's not my call. But just historically, this is where we get into trouble, because what we've seen, like Sister Shrone said, we've seen how the evolution, and I'm going to use that term loosely, the evolution of pants has gone from what? Being a specifically male garment, and it has now become a neuter gender garment to where men can wear pants, women can wear pants. It's just a matter of how they're cut. So, when people say, well, if you look at women's pants, they're cut differently. They're cut so that it accentuates the hips and the thighs, whatever. It's like, yeah, no doubt. You're absolutely correct. And women will say, well, then there's no problem with that. There's nothing wrong. Those are women pants. No question, no problem. But the problem that I do have with the logic of it, I understand the reason, but the logic is off. How do we know the logic is off? Because if I, as a man, say, well, I think that men should be able to wear dresses, not women's dresses, but more masculine dresses that accentuates the masculinity of the man's hips and shows off the masculinity of his knees. Would women have right? The masculine knees. See the dress.
But a lot of men wear tunic tops.
Right, but again, we're talking about modern. See, now we can't shift the goalpost here. If we're talking about a modern invention, because we know 2,000 years ago, women were not wearing pants. I tell people all the time, find me anything on any wall in any ancient inscription or anything of a woman wearing pants, and I'll concede the argument. So we know that women were not wearing it. So I'm not making this an ancient argument. I'm just saying that from a modern argument, because this is where the arguments are coming from. It's a modern issue. You know what I'm saying? If we're saying that women can wear pants because they're an evolution of a masculine or a male garment, that is okay as long as it is made to resemble a more feminine look. then the same logic would allow men to wear skirts and dresses as long as they're a little more masculine, as long as the dress accentuates the masculinity of that person. Then
I have a question.
wearing a dress would be okay, but we've seen what happened when men began to put on dresses and skirts. Remember, like 10 years ago, when P. Diddy and all these people started putting the dresses on, what did we say? Did we say, that's a handsome looking man? Look at that brother's knees. No, we said that dude is a FAGGOT.
And I want to throw in there too, real quick. Y'all said something about the zipper. The jogging pants men wear don't have zippers. We got to pull it down. I mean, that's too graphic, but y'all know what I'm saying. There's no zipper on the jogging pants. So it's like it's one of them things. Like, first of all, I want to say I'm not. Hey, everybody do what you want to do, but I do agree with history, and I do agree with kind of the text, and like you all, Sharon, Akko Sharon, and Chief was bringing out as far as the language. I agree with all of that. So all of this just need to be taken into consideration when you make your decision.
Yeah.
But ultimately, your decision is going to be your decision. You're not going to find me and Chief Prince on here saying, y'all women better wear this. No, our job is just to produce what we know as far as the history and the text. And then the Achayot or the Nashim on this panel is to present what they know of it and also to present what they know of as women. So that's what this panel is for. Akko Sharon, did you want to have something to say? I was going to pass it to.
I did have two questions on the floor. My first question: do y'all remember a picture that was circulating around a few years ago when Most Def wore a modern? Hold on, because Chief, I'm trying to wear it was a modern day skirt that was resembled for the masculine. I'm gonna just put it that way.
Just say it.
That's my first question. My second question is, in modern day times, I do see a lot of men in the culture that wears a long overthrow type of garment. It's not necessarily a dress, but it's like a long tunic top that comes down to the ankles.
Mm-hmm. I'm about to show y'all something as
you're
talking.
How do you feel about that?
I'm about to show you something right now, I hope, as you just said that. But go ahead, Chief. I want to bring something out after y'all. Oh my goodness. I'm about to show y'all this right now. Y'all saw this? Y'all know who that is?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did see that.
I'm about to pull it up on here while y'all talking though. This is crazy. Hold on, go ahead.
Well, no, it's not necessarily crazy because again, the evolution. I mean, listen, I'm just saying this is something that all of them out there say, like all of these celebrities, that's what they're saying. Yeah. They're saying that, hey, times have changed. If women can wear these, and I'll give you a quick example, and then I'm going to answer your question, Sharon. Think about tank tops. Historically, tank tops are women garments.
Oh, I'm taking my tank top off.
Google it. No, Google it. Google it.
I ain't wearing no tank top no more, man.
100, 200 years ago, tank tops was a specifically woman garment.
Wow.
This is the reason why that's why you have like on normal tank tops, you see how the neckline ducks down so low because it was to accentuate the cleavage of the woman.
Goodness gracious.
Not the cleavage of the man. The man has no cleavage. You know what I'm saying? Or should not have a cleavage. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? But historically, you know what I'm saying? That's what tank tops for. Tank tops were for women when they wanted to go swimming. Because they couldn't get, obviously couldn't get naked. So they have the tank top and they would have what they used to call knickers or knickerbockers. They'd have these, whatever. And this was just 100 some odd years ago. But tank tops was a woman's garment. And then somehow or another, you don't really see women wearing tank tops too often anymore, but you see men wear it, and now they're called wife beaters. It's interesting how the term has now flipped. It used to be a woman's garment, now it's a garment that you use to beat your damn wife with. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that that's the problem with evolution, and because we understand, things change. Times move on or whatever like that. But these are the things that the Most High has warned us that, listen, whatever the nations are doing is not our business. So now, to the point that the sister Sharon was making as far as a situation with Mos Def and like how there's certain like garments. And I remember that picture, and I remember kind of looking at it sideways too, like I don't know, only because the culture in which he espoused doesn't dress like that. That's why it was confusing to me. So I can't say what his reasoning behind why he was wearing it. I can't say that, but what I can say is to your second part, as far as like with brothers who wear like the long garments that, you know, go down to the calf or the knee, whatever the case may be. We know that historically, you know what I'm saying, on ancient inscriptions, this is how men wore garments that were long. The women wore garments that were long. I can show you if I had it. Maybe I'll try to share the screen, whatever. But there's an ancient picture of the Hyksos. I'm sure everybody knows who the Hyksos were. These were a roving band of Hebrews who ruled, or Shemitic people that ruled Egypt from the 12th dynasty all the way up to the 16th dynasty. And there's an old picture of these Hebrews, men, you know, the men wearing their garments and the women wearing their garments. The difference between the garments was that the men's garment was very loose fitting. The woman's garment was form fitting, and it always lacked a shoulder portion on their garment. So it was always, there was never any like a sleeve on the top of their arm. It was always blank, and it would just, the neckline would cut like this. So she'd have a sleeve here, no sleeve there. This is what one of the ways that these garments, that the garments and how the people dress, how there was a distinction between you. When you saw a man wearing a certain garment, you knew, okay, that's a man garment. Women's garment normally was form-fitting, which kind of goes against what some people say about, yo, why that sister wearing these form-fitting clothes? She's a whore. Like, well, that's what women wore. Women wore tight clothes that shows off their curvatures or whatever the case may be. But in ancient times, even with long garments, they still wore.
I can't share the screen for some reason, but I need y'all to see this, man. This man got on stockings or whatever y'all women wear. Whatever that thing
so
is.
What is he wearing? What is he wearing besides the stockings? Are they shorts or is that a skirt?
And it look like I don't know. It could be a skirt or shorts, but even the thing on his head, like he going in, like
if you wearing stockings, right? If you wearing stockings and those type of footwear, you might as well have a skirt on, dude, because you're gay as hell. But yeah, so right. So I'm just saying, so you know, historically, the one thing that we know for sure, that when we look at the ancient, you know, with these ancient inscriptions and the paintings of the Hyksos and all of these Hebraic and even, you know, even Egyptian, one of the things that we can never see, we'll never see women wearing pants. So we know that historically this is not a Hebrew argument. This is a modern white woman argument, because white men were wearing their pants, and the white women who were being oppressed by white men, we know the history of white women's lived, you know what I'm saying? The white men would treat them horribly. So their way of saying that, hey, I could be equal to you, I could do what you do, was by them now donning pants. And as time went on, they began to make the pants, you know, obviously some women came along and said, okay, you know what? We can't keep wearing these men pants because they look like men. They look like men. They fit like a man's jeans. So you got some of these designers that began to make the pants to be more feminine cut. But again, if you have to feminize pants, then that means what? That pants originally were not a feminine garment, that it was a masculine garment, and that we've simply made them feminine for modern times. And so what I'm saying is that when we make when we make the argument, on one hand, I'm saying that we have to go and flip it and say, well, if it's okay for women to put on pants as long as they are feminine pants, then it should be okay for men to wear skirts and bras and all that stuff as long as it's masculine. But nobody's going to admit, no one's going to say, you know what? Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, men should be able to wear skirts. No one's going to say that. We're going to say that dude is a faggot. or that dude is gay, or whatever the case. That's what we're gonna say. No one's gonna say, well, it's it's a masculine skirt. No one says that.
Okay. Go ahead and pass it to better Kathy. I'm a yield my time though after you, Kathy, and go into that next song. But what you got to add? What you got to add to this?
I was gonna yield my time as well because I mean,
Chief hit everything. Huh?
right, exactly. I mean, I can just personally say I'm more comfortable in dresses and skirts. I have worn pants.
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking for exactly what Chief and Sharon did. Just the history of it, not so much the continuing to make it a debate, because that's all that I've been hearing is that yes, you can. We're living here now, and then a lot of people will chop it up to occupation. A lot of our women today work in construction. They're not going to necessarily go out there.
Warehouse.
Exactly.
Jobs, yeah.
So that's why I really just took in everything that everyone had to say, because I just wanted to hear that little bit of clarity. But I like wearing dresses. But I do wear my pants.
I'll say this after you. I'll say this. I won't go into what I was gonna say because y'all killed it. I will say this. It just goes back to the culture thing, what Chief was bringing out plainly. Encouragement to the women out there that truly want to be cultural. And this is not a shot to the women that don't want to be cultural. But if you have, like what Gabetta Kathy just brought out, occupations that is forcing you to wear this type of stuff, do what you got to do. But if you want to be cultural, when you're done working, throw on something else if you want to. If you don't, that's cool. I'm just throwing some encouragement out there of some options, some alternatives that you can do due to your work nature, but you want to really grasp this culture. Like, I really want to do it, but man, my job. Okay, cool. Do what your job is telling you to do right now until you get another one if you want, or if you don't get another one, do what you got to do. Once you get out, go cultural if you want to. Just an option, just an alternative. This is not I'm not pushing this on you, but I'm just trying to, give you some encouragement and some extra things to think of. With that, I yield. Chief, did you have something to close out before we go to the next song?
Yeah, no, and that's and listen, and that's a very valid situation, especially again, nowadays with the occupations, and this also came from women's lib, because again, women's lib, they were fighting for what? Women should be able to do what men do. So what has happened is, when women were basically allowed to go into these masculine type of fields, like construction is masculine. Let's come on, we know that a lot of women who become construction workers, what do you begin to see? They start getting a little rough around the edges. That's because facts. Because it's a masculine field, and women, you're around a bunch of masculine dudes all day and breaking buildings down and stuff like that. You're going to start seeing a little bit of rub off. Not saying that you're going to become gay, just saying that it's going to rub off. The same way when you put a man who knows how to braid hair, whatever, and put him in a hair salon, you're going to begin to see him behaving effeminate, because that is the energy that he's around all day long.
Okay.
So that's the downside of the employment situation. But under normal circumstances, I get it. And this has been the sentiment of some of my elders, where they'll tell sisters, listen, if you have to, like, if you're a nurse or whatever, if you got to go out there and you have to, they're telling you that you got to wear, scrubs, the pants, whatever the case may be, do what you got to do when you're out there. When you're in the outside community, do what you got to do, as long as you're not obviously, doing anything wicked. Do what you got to do. But when you leave out of there and you come back into your community, toss that nonsense into the damn closet and get back, to where, where we would be at, where you should be at. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, it's that's a valid point. Because some employment situations do not really allow for women to wear dresses or skirts, and in some situations it wouldn't be safe for a woman to wear, to wear a dress. What she's wearing, it might get caught, in some machinery or whatever like that, the bottom of the whatever, and she can get it, end up pulled into the machinery and cut it. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So I get it. You know what I'm saying? But it's one thing to do something for the benefit of employment, and it's another thing to do it because it's a lifestyle. And what pants has pretty much become a lifestyle now. And it's fine. But just saying that, you know.
For those that's tuning in, make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Search us out on YouTube if you're watching us through Facebook, YAH Conscience Radio. Subscribe, share, and like. Let people know more topics coming. It's great. So we're going to go into the next song. This is again U3. This song is called Put Me Together. Let's go ahead and play it. I guess I got to play it, right? Here we go.
You put me back together. You put me back together again. You put me back together. You put me back together again. You put me back together. Yeah. You put me back together again. Put me back together. Sometimes I wonder why you still love me in spite of all the wrong times. I was so far removed from you. You put me back together. You put me back together again. You put me back together. You put me back together again. You put me back together. Yeah. You put me back together again. Put me back together.
Yeah. That was U3 again. Put Me Back Together. Man, beautiful, beautiful tracks, beautiful singing, harmonies, especially when they all come together. But we're going to go to the last topic, and that is, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts in elder woman teaching? What are your thoughts on an elder woman teaching? I want to start off with the better Kathy.
Wow. I would like to see more of it. I don't see enough of it. And some congregations I heard are against it. I heard some say that they're for it. So again, with me just coming in, I'm trying to understand what is there a reasoning behind, I guess, women, elderly women, like men not being able to teach. It just seems like to a whole congregation, it seems like I see the women teaching more so to the children than the congregation that definitely would be mixed with men and women. So
All right, all right, all right. Let's go ahead and you know what? I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and go. I'll go ahead and go and then pass the mic to Coach Sharon after me.
I may have more to say. I hear you guys. I'm just, just not
Oh no,
seeing.
no. I wasn't, I wasn't speaking on that. I was trying to see which order. I'm trying to mix it up. If y'all notice, like every time we do a topic, I mix it up with goals and all that.
I'm a little biased towards this topic, Chief Shema,
You're a
because I
little
was brought up.
biased.
I was brought up where women consider amongst men and teach
You,
and be taught.
you gotta save it. You gotta save it. Bring it out. Save
So
it as soon as you come after me.
I just want to hear y'all too. I want to hear y'all perspective on
No,
it.
I'm coming. You right after me. I want you to come in. All right. So with me, I just had this conversation yesterday. Something similar, not the exact conversation, but something similar. And this will probably be some Chief will probably be a little more, but definitely more than likely will be more equipped. But my mindset is like when we're looking at the scripture, everything's not being shown in the scripture. Unless you're looking at text outside of the scripture, literature outside of the scripture that can expound, which we know a lot of our people, not all, but a lot of our people don't go outside of the Tanakh, the Torah, and stuff like that. They won't look into stuff like the Mishnah and all these different extra literature sources. But just off the top, we know that within our literature, it's things that's constantly being talked about because this is constantly something that's being broken and messed up. You don't see a lot of topics pertaining to, I don't know, how to prepare your meals. Like Chief brought out the other day, how to, you know, um, put away your when you go to the bathroom, like a lot of different things. So my point in using that example, probably horrible examples, but the reason I'm using it is because I do believe, and maybe I'm wrong, that um, women was very prevalent when it came to decisions. I think that it was just that the men, according to our culture, maybe had like the final. Perfect example, Numbers chapter 30. I go to this all the time. Numbers chapter 30, this is a different subject, but this subject speaks volumes to me. In Numbers chapter 30 is talking about a vow, for those that's not familiar with what I'm bringing out. It talks about a vow, and it talks about if a woman makes a vow that the only person that can remove that vow is that father or that husband if she's married. Now, Chief Shema, why are you bringing that out? For me, that said something. Okay, it's like, well, it's not granted. That same thing is not granted for the man. Then I started to think about, okay, historically, you see that men always was under the hand of other men. So the men had men that was over them that held them accountable. But the person that holds the woman accountable is two different people, in my opinion. It is the man ultimately, whether it's the husband or the father, if she's not married, and elder women. When you go to Leviticus chapter 18 or 19, It's one of those chapters. Forgive me, I'm not like Judah Moshe, and probably not like Chief said, probably not even like YAH Sharon no more. I used to be a beast and memorize the scriptures as far as the text. But I know it's Leviticus 18 or 19. It tells you when the elder comes in to stand. Does it say Zachen or Zachenah? Or does it say, I got to go to the Hebrew and see. So when I say this, you all forgive me because I haven't went to the Hebrew. Matter of fact, Chief, what is it, Leviticus 18? Before I say what I want to say, I'm about to bring this out. Is it 18 or 19, Chief? I know you know. You know exactly what I'm looking for.
Are you referring to rising up before the hoary head?
Okay.
And that's why you put 19, 20, 19 verse 20. No, 22 verse 32.
32. All right, cool. Hold on. I'm about to bring this out because if I'm right, it's going to make a point. I'm gonna make a point. 90. He said, before the gray-headed, you shall rise. Boom. Okay. The hoary-headed, old age. It doesn't say man or woman. I want to make that very clear. It doesn't say in Hebrew, man or woman. Chief, correct me if I'm wrong. Why am I saying this? Because if it's an elder that's a woman, you're going to rise. If it's a man that's a woman, a man that comes in as an elder, you're going to rise. What does that mean for me? I'm not saying this is a fact, but this is how I view it. I believe that our elderly women and men had wisdom that was needed within our community. So we were to go to both the men and the women. Perfect example. You all brought out Sarah. I mean, I know that what Hagar was to her, but she still had to teach. She was the master of the home outside of the husband. She was the mistress. She was the geberet. So in order to be a geberet, you know, in the sense of a certain level of knowledge or whatnot, you were teaching. You were teaching. The text not blatantly saying that, but it's understood by them, but it's not by us. Why? Because we're not looking at it culturally. Why the heck do we got prophetess? What is it? Matter of fact, I'm gonna drink to that. Why is it? I didn't really drink. Why is it prophetess? What is prophetess? They went, Josiah, and the priest went to a prophetess. Am I wrong or right, Chief? What did she do? She taught them something. She brought the words of the Most High. What did Deborah do? That might have been unorthodox a little, but she had to.
Let's not talk about Deborah.
I'm not going. I know because I know people would go. It's a rabbit hole. I get it.
I think Deborah is a great example of something, but we'll, you know.
Yeah, it's an example. So this question is amazing. And I'm done after I say this. Gebeta Kathy brought out, and she said something very important. She said that she see people that do it, and she see people that don't. I'm around people that do it, but they still have that head there in place. And I always revert back to Numbers chapter 30. It might be a different subject, but that's very important. A vow is one of the most important things, period, in our culture. Covenant. And you're making a vow to the Most High, and the only person that can remove your vow is your father or your husband, according to our literature. That's a hierarchy there. So yes, the woman can teach, in my opinion, but it has to have some type of order over them. I don't know how that's going to be looked at when I say that from those that's listening, but a righteous man, I would believe. And that's I'm gonna close out with that. So I think our Coach Sharon was next, and then Chief Zeb will be close it out.
Kane, I'm gonna be really quick on this subject. When I was brought up, I was brought up able to sit amongst men and teach and be taught. In our congregation, there was a lot of men who was new to this, who have no idea how to interpret the Torah, who had, and with me being 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I was able to kind of like get them insight on the literature, and kind of like tell them what do this mean, or break down certain verses or certain scriptures to their understanding. However, like Chief Shamai said, it does have to be some type of order and some type of structure with that. But our congregation, B'nai Zaquen, we didn't have that podium set up. And what I mean by the podium setup is you have the audience, and then you have one main speaker speaking to the audience. Our setup was more so everyone dwell in a circle together, so everyone can ask questions, gain understanding in unison. You know, not so. And it's no offense to the congregation who do have that setup. However, the main goal, the main focus with our congregation is this knowledge is not gender biased. Men, women, and children are going to get this knowledge. You know, it's no regurgitation off of what someone else is saying to you guys. However, Kathy, to answer your question, it may not seem like it's a lot of elders or a lot of women per se teaching, because I'm gonna go back to the dress code. I'm gonna go back to the pants mentality. It may seem more appropriate that women teach the children and women teach other women, and leave the men to teach other men, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna be with Moray Shammai, Chief Shammai on this one. I do think women can teach, or elders can teach. However, it does have to be it does have to have some type of structure. It has to have a period at the end, and a lot of our women now don't have that period at the end when they teach, and that calls for a lot of misunderstanding. It calls for a lot of flawed doctrine to be thrown out there in the midst of it.
Okay. And to throw something out there, I want those that's listening to understand, because some people say, oh, some Hebrews be chauvinistic and all that. I ain't gonna get into that rabbit hole. Matter of fact, that should be a topic that we bring out, Chief. But notice, have you all been noticing what I do sometimes when I'm talking? And it'll be a point I might know, right? But I bring clarification. What do I do? Chief, correct me if I'm wrong. Y'all hear me say that, right? It's still like Coach Sharon was saying, it's a hierarchy there. Chief Prince is a chief prince. I'm a chief. He's a chief prince. So what? And I know he's a historian, one of the finest, in my opinion. So I'm okay with being corrected. It should be some type of order, whether you're a woman or man. This is not just on women. What I'm saying, I just want y'all to know that. I wanted to use me as an example because you hear me say that. And it's not to be like, whatever he say, I'm gonna do. But but in regards to what we're talking about now, yes, this man is where he's at for a reason. I'm learning from him, even though I might know some of the same stuff he knows, or I might not know. That's all it's about. Like our Coach Ron said, we all trying to get this knowledge, but we all got to understand order. And with that, I want to pass it to Chief Prince. Unless you all get better. Kathy got something to say, or our Coach Ron got anything to say to what I just said. If not, I'll pass it to Chief Prince. Hold on, before we go to Chief Prince, if you all don't have anything to say, someone just asked, should a woman, Curtis Montgomery, I think that's Kaim. Shalom, Kaim. Should a woman that teaches be under an elder brother? I think that's what me and
should a woman that teaches be under an elder brother? I think this question kind of remind me, should a therapist have a therapist? And a therapist indeed have a therapist, Okay. So I do believe if you're out there teaching to the community and you take on that role, yeah, you should have someone in hierarchy above you,
always,
that you can retreat to,
Come on, Abraham and Lot, Elijah and Elisha, Eli and Samuel, Moshe and Yehoshua. Like, that's our culture, you all. Whether you are a man or a woman, you should have leadership over you. Period. I don't care if you are the president of the United States. or the president of the Hebrew states, you're going to have somebody advising you in some way.
Yeah.
Did you want to close it out before I pass it to you, Chris?
Zayhul, I'm done. Zayhul.
Okay. All right, Chief. It's all yours.
Okay, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really see. Well, let me not say I don't see why this is even an issue. I understand why it's an issue. I get it. I think a lot of this comes from, and not to ruffle any feathers or get anybody's fringes in a bind, but this contention mostly comes from, and you know where I'm going with this. It comes from 1 Timothy in the New Testament. 1 Timothy 2. No, and again, not trying to ruffle anybody's fringes. Just saying. Paul
makes students of literature too, by the way. For those that know, we are Tanakh based, all that other stuff. But we're just students of literature, man. Good literature.
Yeah, no, and I, and we know that when we quote the New Testament, we do it respectfully. I mean, I don't adhere to the New Testament as authoritative doctrine. I come out of a Tanakh based community, Bnei Zakin, so so we're clear on that. But that's the reason I brought it up, Chief. Go ahead. No, right. But I also understand that there's a lot of people who have not come out of Bnei Zakin, and many of them came into this walk via the New Testament. So I have no problem with that. I get it, that this is where they're coming from, and that's cool. But it's very important that we understand their literature and anybody's literature so that we can be more effective in working with them and getting them to a certain understanding. But with that said, the issue of women being able to teach was never really an issue for the most part, in Tanakh-based camps.
No.
Now, like has already been said, there was protocol that was followed when it came to how that teaching came about. But there was no such thing as, well, a woman cannot teach, because that would be against everything that we know in the Tanakh to be the case. But we understand that the problem comes from 1 Timothy. This is where a lot of the issue of women being taught, and even those who follow the New Testament, many of them are not reading it in the social context in which it was written. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of Paul, but I understand where he's coming from. This is 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 9. Is it actually 9? Is it 9? Yeah, okay. Starting in verse 9. He says, in like manner also, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broidered hair, or gold, or pearls, or costly array, which, again, that might not be relevant for Hebrew culture, but it was relevant for the culture in which the people in which he was talking to in Southern Europe. So, again, that's his issue. But he goes on and says, but which becometh women professing godliness with good works. So what is he saying? He's saying that, okay, well, listen, women shouldn't be all dressed up and looking all, gold and hair all braided and stuff like that. No, if you're about godliness, just focus on your good works. This is what he's saying. But then he has this statement in verse 11 that is the key to all of this. He says, let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. Not some subjection, but all subjection. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. For Adam was first formed, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. Notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing. Wow. If they continue in faith and charity and holiness with sobriety. Now, there's a lot of stuff that we could unpack in what we just read. There's a lot of stuff that we can unpack, but I'm not going to go into that. But this is where people are getting the idea that women cannot teach. That is a Pauline teaching.
Yes.
Now, when you understand the church in which he was relating this information to, then you understand why Paul is saying this. This was a congregation. This was a place in Southern Europe in which women were. It wasn't just teaching. Women were trying to create a matriarchy. So where they ruled everything and the men would be subjected. This is the reason why Paul makes the statement about that they should learn in silence and not to let a woman take or usurp authority over a man. So now we're not talking about teaching. We're saying he's talking about women who are coming in and saying, no, we are running the show. The men are just side flunkies. So he was addressing a very specific issue. And that issue doesn't apply across the board. And what people have been doing is they've been taking that portion of Paul and they're saying, well, women should not teach. And it's like, okay, well, does that apply to the children?
Right.
So the women should not open their mouths to the children. They shouldn't teach. So women shouldn't even teach women. So women should so what therefore, you see what I'm saying? And this is where that
Titus speaks on the women teaching. Titus 3 or something. I'm going off a long couple years ago in memory, but I remember Titus. So it will be contradicting, but it's not because. Go ahead.
No, because this issue wasn't something that was engraved in stone. You got to remember, Paul made, and this is why I say that we got to pay attention to what's written. Like really pay attention to what we're reading, because look what he says. He said, "But I suffer not a woman." He doesn't say, "Don't allow a woman to teach." He said, "But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence." What is he letting it? He's letting it be known. Hey, listen, this is how I do it in my house or in my whatever like that. I tell the woman, shut her damn mouth and go have children.
What?
That's what he's. Listen, this is what the text is saying. I'm not saying this. This is what he's saying.
He said, "Shut your mouth and go have children."
Right, because he said, "Hey, listen, you'll be saved through childbirth. So listen, as long as you have children, you'll get into the kingdom." But I'm not going to get into. I'm not going to get into the. But man. This is. But again, the problem is that we're not paying attention to the origins of where this doctrine is coming from about women not being able to teach. Yes, women can teach. But just like with anything, there is a hierarchy that is in place. That's why where I'm saying the congregational tradition that I came out of, like in the congregation, women sat on one side of the congregation, the men sat over here, because we obviously know what the problem with that is. You next to a sister or whatever like that. You ain't thinking about that. You ain't thinking about the lesson going on. You checking her thighs like whatever. So there was an understanding that no, you keep, the women over here separate, the men over here separate, and you had men who taught, and then you had sisters, elder sisters. Sometimes they would refer to them as queen mothers, and they were responsible for giving the sisterhood what they needed for issues that was, especially issues that were specific to women's needs, because there's some things that issues that women have as women that men might not be the best authority to speak on, and that it would be better for a woman to address it. So there was an understanding that yes, women, there's no problem with women teaching as long as the teaching is exactly that and not a issue of, hey, I'm going to teach men, you go sit down because we're going to run the show. So we understand the order of it. But all of this is coming from 1 Timothy, and this is not even a doctrine. This is just something that Paul said that he does. You know what I'm saying? And he was addressing a very specific issue. The Tanakh, like I said, I don't even think we need to rehash a lot of this stuff, because we know what the Tanakh says. We know what Deborah, you know what I'm saying? Deborah was a very special kind of woman. She was, she probably was what Proverbs 31 was actually talking about. She was very special, and you had, like you said, Chief, you had the women who were prophetesses. That means that that means that there were women who was able to go and have a direct communion with the Most High to extract what the Most High has told them and feed it back to the people.
And I want to say this real quick. That prophetess that did it with Josiah had a husband too. Just want to throw that out there. The prophetess who was directing Josiah and the priest, if I'm not mistaken, it was a priest, had a husband, y'all. So it's like you can't get away from it. But she was a prophetess. I mean, speaking directly to the Most High Yah, according to our literature. And you think a woman can't teach? Prophetess? That's a big. I won't never call myself a freaking prophet. She was way greater than me.
Look at
Miriam. I ain't nobody.
Look at Miriam. Look at Moshe's sister Miriam. Technically, she would have been second in command.
Okay.
Aaron was a priest. He was the high priest, no doubt. That's whatever. But she's a prophetess. That means that she is having direct communion. So that means that she's hearing things before Aaron hears it. And then she'll go to her brother and say, oh yeah, by the way, Yah told me XYZ. Now, we should have a problem with that, right? Because she's teaching the people prophecy. What does the first verse of Proverbs 31 tell us? Can somebody please pull up Proverbs 31, the verse 1? Because a lot of people don't start at verse 1. They usually go down to like verse 10.
Yeah, right.
But verse 1 is very important.
All right, Proverbs 1:1. It says
Proverbs 31:1.
I already know where you're going with. I just thought about it. It's coming from his mom. I ain't there yet, but I'm pretty sure you're about to bring out that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
here we go. The words of Lemuel King, the utterance which taught him his mother. His mother is who taught him. Verse 1.
And what's interesting is that most ancient authorities translate the term ma'asa to mean prophecy or a prophetic burden. His mother is giving him divine utterances, something from beyond what he's accustomed to, and is instructing him not only on how to avoid flipping whores, but to find that which his soul can cleave to. She is teaching the king.
And I'm glad you brought this out, Chief, because it answers her question. It answers Gebeta Kathy's question. Think about it. Proverbs 31 is what everyone goes to, men and women alike. And who gave that knowledge was the mom. It's crazy.
Right. But what's interesting, if you look at the type of woman that his mother is describing, there is still a order, a hierarchy that's established, meaning that this woman, this perfect woman, that she is in such an order in a hierarchy that her husband does not have to bust his head with her as far as what she should be. He's out chilling at the gates with the elders.
Yeah.
Because he's not worried about what she's doing. He's not worried about what she's teaching. Because why? Well, she's about that life. So I don't have to worry about that. I can go over here because I know that she knows what she's doing. This was a different type of culture that we're dealing with. What you're seeing in the first century is not indicative of what, of what Hebrew culture was prior.
That's right.
Oh, what's happening here?
I just brought her in because I thought maybe she fell off.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's among the Tanakh-based communities, this issue has never really been an issue, like that. I mean, things are done. I mean, obviously there's shades of differences in how these things were done, but for the most part, to say that a woman can't teach, I don't think we can't show that in scripture. Now we might say, well, that woman should not teach, or that woman shouldn't teach. Then that makes sense because she might be an airhead. So yeah, it makes sense for her not to teach. But to say that women cannot teach, it's not. Let me not say it's not biblical. It's not in the Tanakh. We can't find anything in the Tanakh to suggest that women should not teach. It's just that the right women should teach, just like the right men should teach. Not every man should teach.
Okay.
Some men need to keep their mouth shut. So I mean,
All All praises.
I think
All
yeah,
praises.
I think Sister Kathy is having a because she just well you see the message, yeah, she's is
Right.
it kicking her out? Oh, there she is.
Well, those that's tuning in, welcome to YAH Conscious Radio. Well, if it's not YAH Conscious, it's not acceptable. Make sure that you subscribe, like, share. Every Thursday, we're going to come in, Yom Hamashi. We're going to come in. We're going to bring great topics, talk about have good discussions dealing with our culture, dealing with our people, so-called Black people as well, so we can build, grow, and get back to the order of things. Does anyone have anything to say before we close out? I'm going to play the last song, and then we're out of here tonight. I call Sharon. You got anything? Get better, Kathy.
Good.
All right. All right. Well, man, I appreciated everything that was said tonight. Chief, you was on fire. I was a student, big student tonight, just listening. I don't know what everybody else got to say about that, but I love the platform. I love when
to y'all goes the glory, y'all. That's all we're doing. We're all just sitting there trying to figure things out.
That's right. Zedachon. And I love when Akho Sharon be bringing those curveballs, man. Like she be throwing them curveballs, make you think. So all praises. We're gonna play the last song, you all. And get better, Kathy. Appreciate you for the topics. Always excellent. Always causing us to gotta go in the bag or whatever people say. The new people talking today. You know, I don't say that. So we're gonna play the last song. It's called Broken Souls. It's a little lengthy, but it's a great song. That's why I'm closing out with this. Here we go. Broken Souls.
Broken people every day. Abba Yahuwah, bring your healing hands this way. Our minds are crippled. hearts are torn. We are your patience with your power. Please perform a mending, a repairing, a transforming to complete. Yasharon, we're crying out. Please heal us. Please, 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 please. Our broken soul. Our broken soul. We need your guidance. We need your guidance. You're our stronghold. Our stronghold. Abba, please heal us. Our broken soul. We need your guidance. You're our stronghold.
This is the cries of a million vessels, all broken up because of what we have done. We need your spiritual molding, and we can only do it by Hashem the Son. Abba, I am so broken. This is not me. Restore my heart, Abba. Help me to see. Why is it that I am so angry? Why is my aggression so centered on them? Why does this vessel always feel so empty? But I'm feeling knowledge and it's up to the rim. I want to fill my cup with your living water, but I am not sure if it's safe to drink. With so many poison wells to draw from, I need your guidance, you're the missing link. I need you, Abba.
Abba, please heal us.
Please heal us.
Our broken soul.
Our broken soul.
We need your guidance.
We need your guidance.
You're our stronghold.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Abba, please heal us.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Our broken soul. We need your guidance. You're our stronghold.
Yeah. So that was U3. The letter U, the number 3. If those of you, if you're interested in them, check them out on YouTube. Search them out.
Yeah, they in the building. They in the building tonight.
Yeah, man, I wanted to go ahead and play. I was listening to the album. I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and play a few of their songs, man. You know, promote them a little bit. But those that's tuning in, make sure you subscribe if you haven't. YAH Conscience Radio for now. And share, like, and let people know about us. We're going to come every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Y'all like how I did that, right? Anybody got any closing words? Any closing words before we end the broadcast?
As always, I enjoyed you guys. Thank you so much for your insights.
All praises. All praises. Shalom, shalom. Those is listening. Those is listening back. Peace. May the Most High bless you and guard you. Shalom. Shalom.
There you go. Hallelujah.